So let's talk firearms. You know what? I saw this wonderful blog by a young attorney, and I was just thrilled at the approach that she took on this. Sarah Ann Vaughn with Bradley Arendt, Bolt, and Cummings. I hope I said that right. Super nice people. Very, very nice people. But she wrote a blog called Is That a Gun in Your Pocket? At the Office. New Thoughts on Workplace Concealed Carry. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm a member of the Citizens Academy for the ATF, member of the Ohio Gun Collectors Association, and I call myself a Browning girl because my favorite gun is a 12-gauge shotgun. But when you're talking about firearms and employment, firearms in the workplace, we have to be very, very careful. It's almost as controversial as some of the EEOC conversations because we have such polarized opinions on this. But the bottom line is, as employers or management for your workplace, you really need to think about the safety and security of your workforce. I mean, that's the bottom line. It doesn't matter your politics. It doesn't matter whether you're a gun owner or not. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. What is in the best interest of your company? Who are you? What do you do? And why would you need to think about firearms in your workplace? The article itself is just it's nice because she's covering the new laws just enacted here. Alabama put through a concealed carry law back in 2023, which allowed individuals to carry a concealed firearm on public property without a permit. It also allowed individuals to carry a firearm in a vehicle without a permit. Louisiana, though, here on July 4th, says now individuals can carry a concealed weapon in public as long as they're at least 18 years old and may legally possess a firearm. And they don't even have to have a permit for it. Now, a number of states have already moved this direction. But again, I go back from an employment perspective. How does this affect you in regards to what are you doing in your state? Are you aware of your state laws? Number one. And number two, do you have a policy to approach this? I had a phone call just the other day, and the employer said, "What am I supposed to do?" He brought his firearm into the workplace because one of his friends said he wanted to buy it. So he brought it in, just to show the guy and let him, hold it and feel it out. I said, "Well, what's your policy?" He goes, "Well, I don't want firearms in my company." I said, "Well, then you shouldn't have firearms in your company. If that's what you want your policy to be, then what is he doing with a firearm in your company?" And he goes, "Yeah, but he says he's not really." I said, "The bottom line is you follow your policy or you change the policy." So the young man got written up. He violated the policy. What's your policy? Churches, post offices, schools, government offices, they all have a policy of no guns permitted. And the states have recognized that. So even in Alabama and Louisiana, those types of locations are off limits. It doesn't matter what state legislation says in regards to the common carrier. You walk in a post office, you better not have that gun. If you walk into a bank, you had better not have a firearm on your possession. But what about your company? I wrote up a number of things that I want you to really consider as you're looking at your policy. And if you don't have one, here's a list of things that I want you to ask yourself. Number one, who do you want to be able to possess a firearm? And that's a valid question. I've got some locations that say, look, the owners, they're all packing. They've either got one in their drawer or they've got one on their person. They've got firearms, but we don't want the general population of the staff to have one. We don't need them all carrying. Well, if that's the case, if that's in the best interest of the company, then that's your policy. That goes in the policy. I've got HVAC companies, cabling companies, clients that say, look, we ask these guys to go into areas that are not always the most comfortable. So we don't have a problem if they're carrying. And again, if it's in the best interest of the company, the employee, that's who you put in your policy. Not by name, of course, but on this role, this position is permitted. Number two, how about a clause for denial? Does your policy have something in there that says, look, we can deny you your ability or your privilege to carry a firearm or even have it on our company property if we want to? We have that ability to exercise discretion. And why would you want that in there? Because what if someone is disciplined, or what if someone starts showing some erratic behavior? Do you want that person to be carrying a firearm if you've said that role is authorized to do so? You need an out. This is your out clause. How about number three, proof of training? I have assisted in a lot of CCW classes. I surround myself with highly trained individuals. I believe that anyone who's carrying a firearm should be trained on that firearm. And that means cleaning. But there's nothing wrong with an employer saying, well, look, if you're going to carry your firearm, could you give me some evidence that you know how to properly handle it? Number four, how about proof of insurance? Do you carry, or does that individual that you're going to authorize, do they have a separate clause? So if that accidentally gets discharged, which normally is what happens, if it gets automatically discharged, they are taking responsibility in there as well. You're going to be held responsible because you're the employer. You just put the rest of your employees at risk. But how about them? Number five, are you going to control how the firearm is stored? There are phenomenal safes, phenomenal cases and devices that if they're going to bring their firearm into the workplace, it's locked up in their drawer, or it's secured in the wall safe, or anything else that you choose or deem appropriate for your site. But you should have something in there. Otherwise, they could be laying out on the desk. They could be, hanging out in the kitchen. You would not believe some of the stories I've heard about firearms in the workplace. You have the right to control how they are stored. Then what about a policy on designation of what is the type of firearm that's permitted in the workplace? Are you going to permit a .44? Or would you prefer limiting it to a smaller firearm like a .22 or a .380? You don't want somebody walking in with an AR. I mean, you should have some kind of restrictions on this. And if you don't know the differences between firearms, the ammo that's used in those firearms, and the impact that ammo can have on whatever it hits, then you might want to think about not having firearms in the workplace. But that's one that I don't see all the time is individuals and employers limiting the caliber or the size of the firearm. Let's see, where's that put us? That puts us at number 7. Do you want them to have the firearm on their person? Designate all firearms, if they come into the company, have to be put into a central location, or they have to be put into a locked drawer, desk drawer. If my HVAC guys, they're all packed, on their person because they're climbing poles, they're digging holes, they're up on roofs and such. They can't leave it locked in their vehicle. But you as an employer, you can make that designation. And then number 8, how do you feel about individuals carrying a firearm on a client site? Now, my HVAC guys, they're obviously on a client site, so they've already made that distinction. But what about you? Do you want your salespeople to be packing a firearm when they're out on a client or at a customer? What about your service guys? Again, you've got to look at each role and the needs of that role and determine, number 1, do they need this for safety? What's the real purpose of why they're carrying a firearm to begin with? Why do they need to be possessing it? And then when might they use it? Number 9, again, do you even want it on the company property? Is there a need for it at all? Now, in many states, some states, they don't even allow it on company property. You can designate no firearms at all on company property. Other states, it doesn't matter. So do you want to put those restrictions, or are you going to leave it open? And then number 10 is, do you want it in the workplace at all? Because you can say no firearms in the workplace, but if you want to keep it out in your vehicle, that's another thing. And if you've got your discretion clause in there, if things go a little awry, you can say, oops, you know what? I don't think I necessarily want to know that or have you bringing a gun into the company property at all. Not a good thing. Not a good idea. We're gonna change the policy a little bit. Look, I don't see thorough policies on firearms. I just don't. And I really haven't figured out why. Because it's definitely something that people are talking about. It's something that people are thinking about. The ATF puts out a wonderful little trifold. It's called Safety and Security for Firearm Owners. And again, if you need more information or more education on individuals who are permitted to carry firearms, this is a great place to start, especially if you're hiring individuals who may possibly have felons in their past. That is an immediate denial, and this information will help support that kind of a decision. Look, all I'm trying to do is help you be proactive in a topic that doesn't seem to want to go away, and that's whether we're going to put firearms or permit firearms, and who can and cannot carry. But that's kind of what we do here. We deal with the topics that nobody else is talking about, because that's who we are at the Human Resource. Thanks again for coming. Take care.